guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah. I'm a 1L at the University of Missouri School of Law, and today we're going to be talking about some of the traits and unique skill sets that a non-traditional student brings to the table and how to market those in your law school application. People always seem a little surprised when I talk about being in the military. I guess I don't look like a stereotypical military member, but I did serve 6 years of active duty Air Force, and I'm currently in the Air National Guard. And my time in service is the only reason I can afford to go to law school, but when I was filling out applications, I worried that my resume wouldn't really translate to the admissions board, and the fact that I did my undergrad fully online while working full-time wouldn't be as impressive as students who went to a brick-and-mortar school. However, there are a lot of traits that a non-traditional student who has real-world experience can bring to the learning environment, and today we're going to talk about those and how to market them to your law school applications. Having been in the military, or if you have other work experience, you are automatically better at dealing with stress and time management. In a practical sense, for here in law school, I don't get stressed out by cold calls. At first I thought maybe it was just a personality trait, that I'm naturally just not as shy or a little more assertive. However, what I've realized by talking to other non-traditional students and people who have worked before coming back to law school, it's that being thrown on the spot or pulled out of my element just isn't as intimidating for those of us who have been in the real world and had those kind of situations happen to us where there were much higher stakes. In a cold call, what a professor does is they'll pick someone random and have you brief a case and explain the implications and the legal principles. Sometimes they walk you through it, or sometimes they make you dig yourself into a hole in the ground by asking you questions and pulling apart your argument. But either way, it's a learning tool that they use, part of the Socratic method, to pull out the principles and make sure that you're engaging with the topic. And a lot of my classmates have a really hard time with this. It's extremely stressful. You can kind of hear their voice quivering, or they completely blank because the teacher's looking at them. And that's not something that I really experience. I like cold calls. I think that they're fun, and it's interesting to get to match wits with the professor, even though I always lose. And I think it's just not as stressful because, to me, the stakes are relatively low. The professor might think I'm dumb, or I might look dumb in front of my classmates, but in the military, sometimes lives are at stake, or my entire career. So the stakes are just not as high, and since I've dealt with higher stakes before, I just don't find it quite as stressful, or I'm just better at managing that stress and pushing down the anxiety, dealing with it in a positive way. And if you are filling out your application, how do you market that? I would advertise your work experience as proof of your ability to adapt and overcome obstacles. Talk about a time that you've had an obstacle in your workplace or in your life, and that how you've overcome it, and that shows that you're resilient, that you're able to deal with stress really well and time management and things like that in a better way than someone who has no practical life experience. Some things are considered common courtesy in the civilian realm, but are harshly enforced in the military, and those kind of habits have really served me here in law school. For example, being on time and being well prepared for class is just habitual for me. It's something that I do automatically because in the military there are pretty stark consequences for being too lax. And here there are no real consequences, but it does establish really good rapport with your professors and guest speakers or panelists when they come, if you're early or at the very least on time and well prepared for those sessions. For example, we had a group of judges come and talk about what it's like to clerk for a judge, and I was there 20 minutes early. I had some homework to do, so I was just sitting in the back of the auditorium waiting for the session to start and doing some homework. One of the judges also got there very early. He was prior military, and we struck up a conversation. I got to build rapport with him, and he remembered my name at the end of the session. So, I mean, sometimes that can really benefit you to be super early or prepared with questions or having read the materials ahead of time so you don't get caught unexpectedly called on by a professor or by a panelist and not have any follow-up questions. It's just not a good look. when you're marketing this, I would just say that you have excellent work ethic. You have a track record of high professionalism, and you have the benefit of getting an employer to write a recommendation letter instead of simply professors. For me, I actually didn't have any professors because my school was fully online. I didn't really interact with my professors in my undergrad on a personal level, so I didn't feel comfortable asking any of them to write for me. But I did have really good recommendations from my superior officers and from my supervisors that really spoke to my work ethic and how I can be extremely professional and analytical, and traits that would translate into law school that I had exhibited while at work. Another thing that being a little older and in law school has benefited me specifically is that I have a more personal frame of reference for some of the subject matter. For example, I own property, I have children, I've worked in a variety of environments, so I can personally relate to some of the topics being covered. It's easier for me to advocate if I can put myself in that person's position, and I also remember the cases and principles being drawn from them a little easier because it could personally relate to me or my life experiences. Whereas if I had no frame of reference, if I didn't own property, then property law would be kind of boring to me. If I didn't have children, then the attractive nuisance doctrine would seem unfair or unreasonable. And so in a lot of ways, just having lots of life experience in general has helped me to remember principles, to apply them, and see how that they would work in real life instead of just as a concept or a theory. When you're marketing your real world experience, I would frame it more as you know what you want, you know yourself well, and you have responsibilities that require you to weigh the risks and rewards of applying to this law school. It's not something you're jumping into lightly, and these other factors like your family or successful career that was already going or otherwise are a source of motivation for you to succeed in law school. Because you know what you want and you know who you are, you know that law school is the direction that you want to take. It's not a whim, it's not something you're unsure about, and that means that you have a higher predictor of success in law school and you're going to have the grit to get all the way through the 3 years. Particularly if you're in the military, but also other work environments, you learn to be very assertive and almost confrontational in how you communicate. And this is actually a double-edged sword. You have to be careful and make sure that you're not coming off as aggressive or unfriendly in how you're communicating a little too directly. But it's also really useful, especially in law school, if you're not timid, because you're able to advocate better. And being able to jump in class and not be too shy or scared to speak your mind just leads for better dialogue in general with the whole class and the professor, and you can learn more that way. So having life experience especially military experience, has made me a little more confrontational, but as long as I hone that in the right direction, that's actually a pretty good asset for the learning environment. And if you're trying to market that, I would not say confrontational on your resume, but you might advocate some of your leadership skills, how you've had leadership training or how you've supervised people in the past, and how that leadership ability is going to make you an asset in the classroom because you can lead discussions, you can push your classmates, you know how to motivate people. And it is really a group effort in law school. I think a stereotype is that it's every man for himself, but especially here at Mizzou, they're trying to turn that culture all the way around. Although your grades are dependent upon your classmates' success, as in the better they do, the lower your score, it is not framed that way throughout the semester. So it's a team effort where we really help each other build arguments and everyone grows because of it. So if that's the culture of your law school, and I hope it is, because I think that's the direction that most law schools are trying to take it, advertising that you have leadership skills and that you are good at working with a lot of different types of people is going to really help you stand out on your application because you've already proven those skills in practice. The last thing that I think my military training has really helped me with in law school is deference to authority. And what I mean by that is that I trust the system and I can absorb better regardless of my personal preferences. I have talked to some of my classmates who have a really hard time working with professors who they don't personally get along with or who their teaching style doesn't really fit their learning style. And so they try to discount the professor as a whole, as a professional, and as an expert because they personally don't get along with them. And that is only going to work out to your own detriment. Your grades are dependent on that professor's exam, and if you're too busy caught up on how much you dislike them, then you're not absorbing the material and understanding the concepts. So my military training to defer to authority and trust my leadership to a certain extent, but in the most part on especially menial things, has really benefited me because I can just kind of skip over the personal part of it and take them as the professionals and experts in the field and really absorb the concepts that I'm supposed to be learning. And if you're marketing this because deference to authority doesn't read very well, I would probably go more in the lane of you're highly adaptable and tolerant. Having been exposed to and worked well with a wide variety of diversity and different personalities, you're able to get along with and adapt to a variety of different professors, a variety of different atmospheres and environments that you're going to be exposed to, either from your classmates or from the professionals themselves. So I know other non-traditional students can relate to feeling like there was this uphill battle when applying for law school and when starting out that first semester, because first I had to explain away all of these mitigating factors that prevented me from maybe volunteering 1 million hours to charity or heading a sorority on my application. And then once I got into law school, I spent the whole first semester just refiguring out how to learn and also how to balance out my family and other responsibilities at home with the heavy workload. I think this is a common struggle for most non-traditional students, but you really have to emphasize in your personal essay and resumes and interview is that you bring a unique perspective to the learning environment that can enrich the experience not just for yourself, but also for all of your classmates. You can spin your family obligations, showing that there are motivation factors. You can stand out by marketing your experiences and skills and seeing how they will translate into law school success. You are an asset to the law school. You will enrich the experience for yourself and everyone else. You deserve to be there. And who knows, maybe in a few years, I'll see you in the courtroom.